The semiconductor industry is always moving, and today we're going to do a quick recap of some major updates impacting the overall industry. We're going to look at companies like Intel, Nvidia, Meta platforms. If this is your first time here, make sure to check out my free daily semiconductor newsletter, whatthechip.happened.com. Let's get started.
I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video, and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for the subscription service. Now, let's continue with today's episode.
All right, so the first major stock we're going to take a closer look at is Intel, right? Intel in the past 5 days has had an amazing week with the stock up over 18%. Now, the main reason is Intel did appoint a new CEO. Intel has not had a CEO for the past 3 months since Pat left in late December or mid-December. And in the meantime, we've seen kind of two co-CEOs running the business. Now, the new CEO is going to be Lee Bhutan, and he is a very, very respected person here in the semiconductor industry. So a few things is Lee Bhutan used to be in the board of directors of Intel. We're going to kind of explain maybe why he left in a bit, but he used to be the prior CEO of Cadence System. And during his CEO time of Cadence System, the stock saw stock price appreciation of more than 3,200%. He also does come with like a nice engineering background, which I think is very, very crucial running a company like Intel. Now, I do really enjoy this decision by the board because he is, like I mentioned, part of Cadence Design System, or was their prior CEO. And EDA software like that of Cadence Design is one that kind of gaps the bridge between design and manufacturing. So as Intel being someone who provides both, I think it was the perfect match to make sure that both these core products for Intel continue to grow. Now, Lee Bhutan did kind of give a letter to his team and to Intel employees, and he does mention that under his leadership, Intel will be an engineering-focused company, and that sounds very exciting. Like I mentioned, I think you need to be very engineer-focused for a company in this kind of market. And while I am bullish in this, I don't own the stock, and I do believe it will take some time before we really see some final results. Lee Bhutan mentions that together they will work hard to restore Intel's position as a world-class product company, establishing themselves also as a world-class foundry. So it kind of, if you kind of read this letter, it can kind of show that maybe Lee Bhutan is not thinking about splitting up the business, or we've heard a few rumors that that's the case. Now, a quick background is Lee Bhutan, like I mentioned, was part of the board of directors, but ended up leaving in late August of 2024. And one of the main reasons, based on rumors and discussions and reports happening online, is he did want to reduce the work size of Intel. He wanted to kind of change the corporate culture, and he wanted to kind of have more of an AI strategy to kind of, because he had major concerns about Intel lagging competitors like Nvidia in AI chip development. So if this is true, we can kind of see a little bit of the direction that this CEO wants to take. Now, obviously, we're going to have to wait at least a few quarters to really see kind of what Lee Bhutan wants to do with Intel as a company. Now, outside of the CEO announcement, Intel also got hit with some recent reports that their 18A production is starting to appear ahead of schedule at a new Arizona fab plant. The main reason is one of the engineering managers actually posted something on LinkedIn. Now that LinkedIn post has come down, but he kind of talks about this exciting milestone for 18A. Again, 18A is kind of like that, the future golden child. So if these rumors are true and these reports that maybe they are getting there ahead of schedule, that could be a nice positive momentum for stock investors. So like I mentioned, I don't own Intel, but it is something to kind of keep a track out, and I am going to continue to do research on that company. Now, for Nvidia also had an amazing day. And if you've been watching my channels, I've been talking that I really do enjoy Nvidia below those 115s, below those 110s. And in the past 5 days, the stock is up over 10% with no new CEO and with no new milestones. The stock is sitting at $121. Now, the first thing that Nvidia investors should know is in about 3 days from now, we are going to have Nvidia's GTC 2025 keynote. This is where Jensen, the CEO of Nvidia, is going to announce all the new products for NVIDIA. Now, let me just kind of warn investors with two things. First, this keynote is probably going to be very, very boring. It's nothing crazy. There's going to be a lot of technical talk, a lot of engineering talk. So even though it is on the top level approach on those talks, it's still very boring. So if you're watching it, don't expect rock concert. Don't expect something exciting happening every so often. I'm pretty sure most of the time, most of us are going to be like, what did he just say? How is this going to go? And it's going to take a few days, a few rewatches to really to really absorb everything Jensen talks about, because he is a very, very smart person. Now, the second thing I do want to say is normally with events like this, you tend to see the stock price go up before the event. And in the short term, you might see kind of a decline in stock price. I don't really care about that. I'm not much of a short-term investor. And also the stock has experienced a bit of a downturn. So even though that's a typical pattern, it doesn't mean it's a guaranteed. And as a long-term investor, I'm not here trying to find the bottom and try any of these patterns. I'm here as a long-term investor. So as a long-term investor, even if the keynote causes the stock price to drop because maybe expectations were met, I'm going to make sure to do a video and make sure that at least my expectations were met. And I think that's what's super, super crucial. Now, outside of that, there are reports that Tencent is making massive orders of NVIDIA's H20 chip purchase to integrate DeepSeek into their WeChat. So this is coming through a Chinese media outlet. So obviously these are just reports and we don't have any real confirmations. But at least it showcases that DeepSeek is not an issue. And a few days ago, I did a video of why NVIDIA wants AI to be so cheap, right? They want to run these AI factories. So again, this is pretty great, and it kind of showcases the demand for NVIDIA chips in other industries. And even though the H20 is a weaker version, right, than some of the other solutions out there, even the domestic solutions out there, customers are still picking NVIDIA. Now, obviously, one thing that can hurt this stock is if we do see more export restrictions on the H20. Now, outside of that, we are kind of getting some talks here for Meta platforms. So Meta platforms in the past 5 days is pretty much flat. And while Meta is not a semiconductor company, they do have a very strong engineering team. And there are reports that Meta is beginning testing in-house AI training chips, reportedly manufactured by TSMC. Now, everybody's out there going to say, hey, look, Jose, this is bad news for NVIDIA. It's really not. They're obviously they can manage and design and even test out. But at the end of the day, are they going to go with these chips? And even if they do, Meta is I'm gonna make this wild, bold prediction. Meta is still gonna be a massive revenue grower for NVIDIA. Now, I think for Meta platforms, it is very, very important for them to design their own AI chip and kind of build their own form of infrastructure if it can help reduce the cost. Meta platforms is a huge AI company, and they have a lot and a lot and a lot of customers and consumers that use their platforms, right? So for Meta to be able to release all its AI solutions to its consumers, to its users, it needs to have huge infrastructure. So they're trying to find ways to build that infrastructure even faster. And I think this is just one of those ways. But again, I really wouldn't be worried as an NVIDIA investor. We're seeing that NVIDIA is going to innovate faster levels, in my opinion. Their total TCO is going to be the best in the business. But overall, big tech still wants to be able to somehow feel like they're controlling their own future. So that's all I have for today's episode. I hope you guys enjoy it. Take care and have a good weekend.